The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Chiefs, Eagles, it is a Super Bowl rematch.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I want to start off talking about the biggest story for both of these teams, and I really do believe it is with the QBs. That's how this game always seems to play out. It comes down to those QBs. Louis, how do you see it in this game?
Yeah, you wouldn't know that from the national media perspective and a lot of national fans talking about Jalen Hurts. But believe it or not, these games normally do come down to who outperforms the other quarterback between Jalen and Patrick Mahomes. Jalen's had his number in 2 Super Bowls, even though Mahomes won the first one. I think Hurts was the better quarterback. He also won in 2023. It's interesting. They're the only 2 quarterbacks ever that have won a Super Bowl both against each other and have faced off in multiple championships. It's kind of becoming for NBA fans like the Cavs-Warriors rivalry of the NFL, where they're playing every single year in really important games. So I think Jalen Hurts is a huge opportunity that if he beats out Mahomes again on Sunday, I don't know what more you can say to keep him out of that tier 1 list of quarterbacks. I'm sure people will find a way to do it, but I think if he carries the Eagles the way he did week 1 against Dallas and in Super Bowl 59, I don't know what the critics are going to say at this point. So I'm fascinated about this matchup from Jalen's perspective.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's about how he goes about the game. If he is less dependent on his legs, if they don't get in 7 tush-push situations, if it's an actual quarterback duel where it's about delivering the ball to receivers that have an opportunity to catch it, then I think it's a really interesting matchup. I'm just not sure the Chiefs are going to be able to put their receivers in as good a position to actually help their quarterback. So once again, much like the offensive line was in the Super Bowl, there's an apples to oranges comparison that I think keeps coming back into this because of the supporting cast. And I'm a Jalen fan. I was before he came out of the draft, and I do think it makes it a little bit more difficult to compare them. I'd like to just see a clean game where we can get an even tell on them.
A clean game with no injuries, please. Can I ask that? That's what I want. I want a clean game. I want to see I'd love to see a high-scoring game in this one. I don't know that we'll see it. I think that both these teams showed inconsistency at times on offense last week. Obviously, Kansas City for sure did. But I thought even watching the Eagles play, they weren't consistent the way that you would expect a Super Bowl winner to be in the first week of the season, especially against a rival like the Dallas Cowboys. But you look at this game and you look how it's going to play out. And I agree with you, Louis. This is one of those situations where if he wins again, if Hurts finds a way to beat Mahomes again, you have to start wondering, where are you going to put him in this conversation? Now, you can make an argument that the supporting casts are way different. Hurts has a little bit more talent around him. I don't think that there's going to be an argument that you can't really say that that's not true. But you look at this game, and it's just one of those things where Kansas City is now in a situation where they are 0-1 going into play the Eagles. If they go to 0-2, that does become a problem, and the pressure is going to be squarely on Patrick Mahomes to make this a game where he says pretty much over my dead body, and are we going to lose 2 in a row?
Yeah, and I'm not even saying that if Jalen beats Mahomes, suddenly he's ahead of Mahomes. Like, I think Patrick still is number 1 in the NFL. Like, undoubtedly so. Over still Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts. But if Jalen goes out and again outduels the number 1 guy in the league, as he's done multiple times, even when he doesn't beat him, like he's right there with him, that should matter more in these conversations about where quarterbacks are ranked. And I just don't like, people are still putting, even in our Locked On NFL Top 100 list this offseason, people are putting Jaden Daniels ahead of Jalen Hurts and Matt Stafford. And I think, Chris, you nailed it. Like, the offense last week was definitely inconsistent. A.J. Brown only got 1 target, and it was the last drive of the game. Devontae Smith only had 16 receiving yards. I thought Dallas did a really good job stopping Saquon Barkley in the second half. He had under 70 rushing yards, which was a rarity last year. the only real positive, consistent part of that offense last week was Jalen Hurts carrying the football team, making plays outside of structure with his legs when nobody was open. That's how the first 2 rushing touchdowns happened. It was kind of a mini first half shootout, and yet I still don't think he got enough credit because he only threw for 153 passing yards. So I would love to see him go out there this week and put up the numbers in a win on the road. Because, again, I just think that'll continue to help the narrative that he is an elite quarterback. So I think there's a lot riding on this for Hurts from an individual perspective. But like you guys said for the Chiefs, like this is rare territory. I mean, going down 0-2 to start a season is not like the Mahomes-Reed era.
No, it's definitely not. And it'd be something that I think would be a precedent you don't want to set, but you got to live off of. That's got to push you forward. And I like this rivalry between the 2 quarterbacks because it continues to push. I feel like maybe more so than some other times Mahomes has been on stage at a pre-Super Bowl media event. I feel like there's a lot of camaraderie and mutual respect there. And I think that
totally agree.
Fed upon. But the thing for me, I actually feel the opposite in terms of performance. I want Jalen to put up 250 yards. That's what I'm looking for. Because if he does that, it means he didn't run it in 4 times and he's not tearing them up on the ground. And for me, that's what I think is the driver that moves the offense against this Chiefs defense. If they can keep him to the fact that they're going to give up pass yards and they can keep him in particular out of the end zone, it means he's got to work as a true pocket quarterback. And I think that's the way that Mahomes can actually stay out front a little bit, maybe put up a few more points. We'll see what that defensive front looks like.
Yeah, and I will say this, when you start looking at how this is going to play out, I agree with you completely that it is a scenario where if Hurts comes out and plays, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the guy, but if he comes out and plays and wins with his legs, it doesn't say the same thing as him coming out and playing like a normal quarterback and coming out and throwing for 250, 300 yards. I understand it's not the game of football today. You're going to use your legs as a quarterback. I get that. I'm not trying to take that away from him. But it's a different conversation, whether it's fair or not.
Can I ask why? Production to me is production. I think Lamar Jackson, we don't knock his mobile production or Josh Allen, but for some reason with Jalen, the rushing, even Cam Newton back in the day wasn't putting up 4,000 plus passing yards every year, but everybody said he was an elite player. I'm just curious why the rules for Jalen are different than other quarterbacks.
I'm not saying that they should be. I'm simply stating that that's the way it seems to be. Because
no, I agree with you. I was genuinely asking. I'm curious why people form it that way.
I wish I had a great answer for you because the reality is you're right. Production's what matters. Wins matter. As much as people say that QB wins doesn't matter, that's what people are judged on. It may not be fair, but that becomes reality as you look at who is the most winning quarterback of all time. That's who you think is the most successful quarterback. It doesn't necessarily matter if he threw for 5,000 yards or not.
Yeah, and real quick to just kind of wrap things up for at least my perspective on the quarterback thing. I totally agree with you. If a player was clearly a product of his system and was not elevating a football team, I would call them a system quarterback. Brock Purdy is somebody that I kind of put in that tier, whereas Jalen Hurts I don't think belongs there because although you're right about how people shape his rushing production versus passing, he is still elevating the team and carrying them through his legs. Last week, I think it's a foregone conclusion if you watch that game, they won because of Jalen Hurts. Was it through the air? No. But you still won because of your quarterback, so why does it matter how in the modern day NFL? I just think it's interesting. But yeah, I don't know. It's a fascinating matchup. I think Pat Mahomes does a lot of things that are similar to what Jalen does. Great. That Mahomes gets credit for and Jalen gets knocked for. So I don't know. I just clearly, as you guys can tell, I have very passionate feelings about this, but I just think quarterback narratives and dialogue right now is just the rules are always different, and it's very fascinating to me.
It's depending on the fan base as well, and everybody's going to turn a little bit.
You can tell I've been on Chargers Twitter too much the last few weeks.
Yeah, no one
as you guys did last week.
That's a dark place to go, sir.
Yeah.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
Somebody's leaving Ford Field on Sunday, 0-2.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast.
First of all, what was Monday night like, and what was your reaction? And now as the dust is settled, how do you feel about this weekend?
Yeah, Monday night and really week one was a real tough, like hard not to overreact kind of situation, because we've been waiting to see what everything was going to be. And so then, of course, whatever we see in the first game of Ben Johnson's offense and Dennis Allen's defense, that's going to be like the ultimatum and really like, oh, must be what the Bears are as a team, when it's hard to keep it in perspective and say, no, this is like their first actual game doing this. Like, we don't have to think that everything we saw in week one is exactly what it's going to be the rest of the season. And yet there was something still particularly like painfully familiar about team blows it at the end and has a win slip right out of their fingertips in a way that felt kind of Eberflusian, but at least it kind of felt like they did it. They got there, like the result felt the same, but they got there in a different way. So at least it's a different kind of disappointment, because expectations were so much higher that they thought, especially with how strong they started that game, that, oh, everything was solved. And then all of a sudden it felt like nothing was solved.
Interesting here in Detroit. People are panicking. People do not like this. The expectations have been raised. The bar has been raised. Dan Campbell said on Wednesday, hey, look, we're okay with fans being upset that we laid an egg. We understand we need to play better and should be better. But people are just freaking out because you got the two new coordinators. You got the new center, the new right guard, heck, a new left guard. And the Lions really got their clocks cleaned by Pete Bukowski's Packers. I'm sure a lot of my listeners were like, oh gosh, they were avoiding Pete all week, but seriously, it just was not a good performance. But you get 16 more of these, and it's, certainly time to come home. And I think the biggest storyline for Detroit is cleaning up the communication and getting back to playing their brand of football, powering the football on the ground, Montgomery, Gibbs, and just playing better. Really all three phases, including the kicking game. Kick returns were messy. Kick coverage was messy. All of that kind of has to be the story in Detroit. What about in Chicago? What's the biggest storyline for you?
Yeah, it's a very similar feeling, right? Where it's like it just was messier than it was supposed to be. Communication on offense, timing of routes and throws, but then also timing of the snap count. They had like 3 or 4 false starts in that game, 12 penalties as a whole, like a lot of different things that go wrong that all collectively add up to a loss. And you feel like, well, some of that stuff should generally be pretty quick fix stuff. And some of it might be longer running issues here, where if the offensive line was not nearly as improved as it was supposed to be. And so there's some injuries on defense that until those guys come back, you can't just fix it and make the backups somehow, way better than they actually are supposed to be. So there's also the similar feeling of like, you don't want to panic and throw everything out the window just yet, but you need to see some drastic improvement. And it feels like, for me, like, it's not a must-win game for both teams in week 2, but it's definitely a must be a lot better, or else everyone's really going to panic.
Ben Johnson took some blame after the game on Monday night and did so again on Tuesday, just about clock management. Were you surprised that everybody knows you need the 2-minute warning as your timeout? And except apparently him and the special teams coach, that was a big snafu the other night, wasn't it?
Well, it was more so. I mean, it is at the end of the day, it does fall on the coaching staff, but like they believed their kicker when they asked him and he said he could get it out of the back of the end zone. They said, all right, get it out of the back of the end zone. And he couldn't. He just doesn't have the leg. And maybe they should have known better, but maybe you want to trust your guys in the first game and not overrule them and not say, well, you say you can do it, but we don't trust you, so we're not going to have you do it. Like I get that can be a difficult thing to navigate, but a lot of that's, first time head coach in his first game he had a bad challenge flag he threw, but those things tend to fall a little bit lower on the level of like things that directly resulted in a loss. I mean, Caleb Williams missed some throws that he absolutely needs to hit at this stage of his career. The offensive line and the running game were a lot worse than they should have been. The pass rush disappeared, and maybe they didn't adjust as well as the Vikings did from a coaching standpoint. That all those things absolutely quickly need to be better. And I'm curious for you from Detroit's perspective. Yeah. A lot of Bears fans are wondering, when you look at adjustments Detroit needs to make, like how much felt like a direct result of new coordinators and how much felt like a direct result of new players, on the offensive line and some other changes they did on defense.
I just think it's everything. I really do. It's the only person that got a game ball for me, and I do game balls on our Sunday show, was Isaac Tesla, and he caught one pass. It was the most unbelievable catch of all time. It was really damn good. It meant nothing. It was the end of the game. They needed a score. They were coming down the field. So I gave him a game ball for the effort, but everybody is to blame. You know, I mean, to sit here and say, all right, Hank Fraley, the Lions offensive line coach, I think is their best assistant. He didn't just get dumb in one game. And really, you know, and send guys out there to fail. But my goodness, Graham Glasgow at center taking over for Ragnow, and Frank's retirement is a big storyline. But Glasgow played a very poor game, the lowest rated offensive player on the Lions, according to PFF. He was brutal. Christian Mahogany, the left guard, who played the Bears last year and played well, really was bad. Tate Ratledge, the first round pick at right guard, was no good. The D line couldn't get any pressure. It was, I mean, first drive of the game, Jordan Love's jersey is as clean as it ever was, and he goes 8 for 8. I mean, you got to put some pressure on him. Aiden Hutchinson didn't have a tackle in that game. So I think it's a mix of everything. The coaches admitted maybe they should have played some guys in the preseason. Maybe they should have played some of the younger guys in the preseason. Also, they just looked unprepared, and I think that's on everybody. So
it's striking how similar the issues are for both teams. Like for the Bears, interior offensive line, like center Drew Dahlman was supposed to be an upgrade. He was horrible. And Jonah Jackson was even worse. I mean, at least Lions fans are familiar with Jonah Jackson's struggles, and it felt like more of that Jonah Jackson than the Pro Bowler from 2022. And then that's like the Lions, the pass rush. Like they sacked JJ McCarthy on the first 2 drives, and then the pass rush was totally gone from there for the rest of the game. And it's funny how like both of these teams are looking to improve a lot of the same things now against each other in week 2.
No, I think you're right. And I think both defenses are better than what they showed. Certainly the Vikings in the second half ran the ball right down the Bears' throats. I'm a Dexter fan. He got pushed around a little bit. Obviously, some of the additions on the interior of that defensive line. Sweat made that one play, but like you said, second half couldn't get to McCarthy. And that defense is good. My question's with your quarterback. I just wonder if he is going to be the guy. I think he's got to get a full season. This talk of, the Caleb Williams experiment, I think that's for the talking heads on TV. He's going to get a whole year, of course. But I think the Lions also, same thing, can be better. I mean, just the fact of the matter is Jordan Love had way too much time to throw all day. And guys they expected a lot more from, including Aiden Hutchinson, who's just coming back from a leg injury, Marcus Davenport, even some guys in the secondary. DJ Reed really struggled, lowest defender on the PFF scores on the defensive side. So yeah, it wasn't good.
Quick thing on Hutchinson.
Yeah.
Did the Micah Parsons deal totally ruin the Lions' chances of signing him to an extension? Is there a direct
Hutchinson to an extension?
Yeah, because there was talk of Hutchinson getting a deal, and then Parsons gets $45 million, and then all of a sudden the report comes out that Hutchinson's not going to get a deal, and they're just going to play.
No, I mean, I still think he's going to stay. I see no scenario where it even gets to a franchise tag situation in a couple of years. I don't. But he is too important. The Lions have done a great job retaining their own guys. Heck, they got Jamison Williams signed past 2027 now on a pretty team-friendly deal at $27 million a year, which for a receiver in 2 years could be up to $35, $37 million. So no, I think it'll be okay. I think people just panic when they didn't get him signed before the season, but he's not going anywhere. I think he's just too popular, local kid from here and from the University of Michigan. And I think they'll figure that out.
Yeah, I guess did it screw them from getting him on a good deal? Like they were.
Well, that's a good question. I mean,
Parsons jumped up that price tag all of a sudden.
Oh, he did.
Shit, never mind. Got to wait.
But Parsons looked the part, even in limited snaps, looked the part of a guy that deserved that $47 million. Just what he brought to the table that whole day on Sunday. I think his moxie, his aura, just his presence there kind of really fired the Packers and their crowd up. And the Lions never really recovered from it.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks.
I have to know, because you see all of these top 10 lists come out of top quarterbacks in the SEC, and Taylor Green is on there. And I get it. He has 10 touchdowns this season. Everybody's excited about that. But 6 of them came against the team that made Peyton Thorne look like a freaking Unitas candidate the year before. What am I missing?
Well, I look at it in the perspective of, did you do what you were supposed to do? Did you look good doing it? Because here's the deal. If he only threw 1 touchdown pass or no touchdown passes against Alabama A&M, it would probably be a talking point of like, Well, if you can't do it against Alabama A&M, can you do it against Ole Miss? Can you do it in the SEC? But when you go out and you throw 6, like, I mean, you're going to sit here and say, and right now has to be the Heisman after 6 touchdown passes. No, but it's about doing the job that you're supposed to do. If you're Taylor Green, if you want to be that great quarterback in the SEC, you got to dominate bad teams. You got to dominate bad defenses. And Taylor Green did that in that game. He did it against Arkansas State. And that's why this game against Ole Miss is so important, because it's going to showcase if it's all for naught or if he's actually legitimately going to be considered one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC.
You know, we've done these crossovers for multiple years, and I don't know if I've seen you this giddy about an Ole Miss Arkansas game during our crossover span. You really think that Arkansas has a good chance Saturday?
Well, I think the reason you haven't seen it is because we haven't played this early in the season. You know,
That's true.
Things haven't gone wrong. I mean, last year was a little bit earlier, but Arkansas already lost a few games leading into that. The year before that, I believe, was at the end of the season, like second to last.
It was cold.
Yeah.
That was the Auburn lane thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, that was 3 years ago. That was 2022.
Correct. Yeah. And then there was that, and then year before that was late. So I think that's a big part of it. And Arkansas is undefeated. And again, I know that they have not played high-level competition. I'm not sitting here saying that they have. But you can only play the games in front of you. And in the 2 games that they've played, they've looked really good. It's not to say it's been perfect. I mean, Taylor Green's thrown 2 interceptions. Their defense has had some issues here and there. Definitely far from perfect, but so far the season's perfect. And I think from the perspective of Razorback fans, there's optimism there. But, Ole Miss, you're undefeated too. Playing much better competition, but I think after seeing that Kentucky game and maybe Austin Simmons, not saying Arkansas fans feel for sure they're going to win, but they feel a little bit more confident that it could happen based on those things that we've seen.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat on Twitter that since 2021, Ole Miss is like the 6th highest winning percentage at home, which that kind of surprised me a little bit because of the history of the program and all of that. But yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I think I'll put it like this. If both teams play their A games, Ole Miss is going to win. Ole Miss has to help out Arkansas through interceptions, turnover on downs, bad penalties, the sloppiness. They have to help out Arkansas for that to happen. But you don't have to help out Arkansas as much as you did last year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. I see it the same way, where if we're just talking about on paper, matching up rosters, matching up talent, matching up coaching, all of those things. If both teams play their A game, if both coaches coach their A game, Ole Miss wins. And I don't think that's a controversial take. But as we all know, college football never goes according to plan, especially in this game.
Yeah,
and also, too, I think Ole Miss has won the last 2, but Sam Pittman's had some success against Ole Miss. It's not like this boogeyman like Missouri or A&M that he just can't figure out ways to beat. There's been some success. There's been some wild things. And I know that these rosters are different. Obviously, Bobby Petrino is being the offensive coordinator there, and he's doing a good job so far. It's just, it gives, I think, Razorback fans hope that if we're going to get excited about this year, if we're going to feel good about this year, which nobody did going into it, it's got to be starting with a win over Ole Miss. Because if Arkansas does it, it changes everybody's mind and narrative. But I agree. If Ole Miss plays their A game, they win this game. It's just a matter of, does Arkansas play their A game and keep it close, or do they play like they did last year and get records set on them?
Yeah, and I don't think that Arkansas fans need to go all in on this. Well, now you want this game because this is the drunk uncle of SEC football. I mean, crazy stuff can happen. I mean, somebody that's been dead for 30 years could turn up in the crowd and you're like, oh, it's the Ole Miss Arkansas game. That makes sense. But I think the Notre Dame game is more of the perception game than even the Ole Miss game would be for Arkansas fans. If you're 4-1 after Notre Dame, I think at that point you can kind of start to feel better. I mean, Arkansas coming into the season, nobody expected them to be in the hunt for a playoff, but they just didn't want to go to the Liberty Bowl. They wanted to go to a Florida Bowl game or something like that, one of those higher games. And I think a win out of Notre Dame would probably give them a little bit of the belief, because that's a home game, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, it's at the right old time at 11 a.m. On a Saturday.
Really? They set that at 11?
Of course they did. I mean, that's just what happens. I know. Razorback fans are very upset because this is the first time Arkansas and Notre Dame have ever played in history. It'll probably be the only time we ever see Notre Dame come to Fayetteville. So it's very disappointing on that front. And I get what you're saying about that. I think it's more of just about the perception that Razorback fans have where, most of them, when they're doing their predictions and expectation for the season, no Razorback fan circled the Ole Miss game as a for sure win. And most of them didn't circle Notre Dame as a for sure win. But what they do see it as is, okay, well, we play Ole Miss every year. We know Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin knows us. Like, we do it all the time. But with Notre Dame, it's kind of like they don't know anything about Arkansas. They don't know anything. There's a mystery there. And I think that people can kind of hope on that. And it's also, too, with this game against Ole Miss, I think Razorback fans just want to have it. There's just that little short period of time, where they're like saying, hey, we could do a playoff. It's not going to happen, but if you beat Ole Miss, you're 3-0. And that week leading into that Memphis game on the road, which would be the next one, which is still stupid. They play on the road in Memphis, but that gives them saying, okay, we can beat them. We can beat Notre Dame. It elevates everybody. But if you beat Ole Miss or lose to Ole Miss, there's going to be that drop where suddenly it's like, well, I don't know if we can beat Memphis, and I don't know if we can beat Notre Dame. Now, if you do, it'll change. But I think Hog fans are just wanting to have a little bit of a consistent uptick of feeling good. And even if they lose to Notre Dame, I think most Razorback fans would rather, in my opinion, beat Ole Miss on the road than beat Notre Dame at home if they have their choice.
Well, they should, because once this thing goes to 9 games, that's going to be a permanent game, hopefully every single year, because it deserves to be, because Ole Miss and Arkansas played back in the Southwest Conference days. I mean, you don't have a lot of history until you join the SEC against a lot of teams, but against Ole Miss, you did. It goes back to the 50s, to the point where Frank Broyles was pissed off at Ole Miss and decided to quit playing them, which apparently is a thing, right?
Yeah. He usually got his way whenever he wanted to here at Arkansas. But no, I was actually talking about this on my show yesterday in discussing of all the games in the SEC, of all the teams that play each other every year and have played each other every year, you'd be hard pressed to find a game that has had more insane moments and iconic, legendary performances, all that, than these two teams that match up against each other. And I think there's just been a lot of similarities. I think Arkansas leads the series, but only by 7 games. It's not like it's this dominating over history. It's been a lot of back and forth, and it's a fun game. And I'm with you. It should remain a permanent opponent. I think that because of the history that's there and that's been there for a long time. I just think that it's one that the SEC deserves, and most people have to understand that this is something to talk about. This is a game people should look forward to, because it's always bananas and it's always insane no matter what.
Yeah, and it would be very SEC if Arkansas got like Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri as there's like no original SEC teams in their 3. That would be very SEC to do. Ole Miss and Arkansas need to play. They just do.
Yeah. I mean, it's Arkansas's not close to many schools proximity wise, except now they're only 3 hours or so from Oklahoma and Norman, which of course they'll never play each other in that. It's just whatever. But either way, not to say that Oxford is close to Fayetteville, because I think it's maybe 6 hours, 6-7 hours. But the point is like so close in proximity of not only from Little Rock, I think it's a 2.5 hour drive, something like that. But there's a lot of in-state kids that go to Ole Miss. There's some Arkansas kids that if they don't want to go to Arkansas, but they want to not be too far from home, I think Ole Miss is kind of a natural place for that. And so there's just too much history, too many connections, too many similarities for this to not be a constant thing. And at least I can only speak for Razorback fans. I think Razorback fans would be great with it. They would rather play Ole Miss every year than Missouri or A&M. They'd rather do that. I don't know if Ole Miss fans feel the same way about Arkansas, but it's definitely something that I think Razorback fans are hopeful that it stays and remains in football.
Yeah, Ole Miss fans are currently fighting over the right to play Kentucky or Vanderbilt every year. But they know that that's probably not going to happen. The SEC is going to put them with like Auburn, since Auburn's going to get Alabama and Georgia. So if they take those off the table, I think everybody would naturally move to Arkansas. What's your feeling on the LSU game? Because I know Texas is a non-negotiable.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Texas, and I don't think it's going to be LSU, honestly. Because I think LSU, some of those teams just have too many ones that everybody wants to play. I think LSU, they're going to make sure that they play Bama every year. I think LSU plays Ole Miss every year, to be honest.
Yeah, they will.
And then I think they'll probably throw in either a Texas A&M because of whatever history, or maybe Florida because that's kind of developed into one for a while. But that's going to be happening. I think every Razorback fan understands it's probably more than likely going to be Texas, Ole Miss, and Missouri, which, it's not going to be the easiest thing. It's not going to be the most joyful thing because there is some things with LSU. But to me, that makes sense because I assumed that Ole Miss was going to have Mississippi State, LSU, and Arkansas. That's how I viewed it. And so, which again, it makes sense. It fits. But as we know, no one cares what we think. No one cares what it's about what makes money. And whatever whatever format's going to make the most money for the conference, that's what's going to happen. But I think and also too, a lot will disagree with me. I'd rather have Texas every year than LSU. Some of the newer fans join the SEC 1 LSU. I'm a newer fan, but playing Texas is always a bigger deal. Like LSU is a big deal. Don't get me wrong, but the history of Arkansas and Texas is there, and they are a big deal. I feel like they got to make that happen.
The NFL season is finally here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
With Brock Purdy likely out this weekend, the New Orleans Saints have a chance to surprise on Sunday.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The number one story for both of these teams has to be all around Brock Purdy. Fill us in. What are we expecting when it comes to Brock Purdy and the 49ers? And what does it mean for San Francisco?
At first, I just got to say it's a pleasure to talk to you, Ross, but it's also a pleasure to cover the San Francisco 49ers because it's always just insanity. There's always something crazy going on. They're either drafting top 3, they're taking quarterbacks, there's quarterback controversies, or they're going and losing Super Bowls. And they've done just about everything you could possibly do as an NFL franchise over the course of the last half dozen years, except for hoist the Lombardi. So we'll see if the 49ers can get there this year. But when it comes to Brock Purdy, the latest from Kyle Shanahan is that it's highly unlikely that he's going to play, and potentially Brock Purdy might not play for multiple weeks with a shoulder injury. He's got a toe injury as well. Kyle Shanahan thinks he pinpointed the play where Brock Purdy got hurt, but it's a long shot right now for this week, and it's potentially multiple weeks that we might have a chance to see Mac Jones and not Brock Purdy starting for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, and I imagine, Brian, that's compounded big time because Brandon Ayuk, of course, still working his way back overall at the wide receiver spot. George Kittle still are on injured reserve now with the hamstring injury. Juwan Jennings also dealing with some things. So where does the 49ers kind of go here? And who are some of the players that the New Orleans Saints fans need to know that might be stepping in around Mac Jones?
You feel really good right now if you drafted Christian McCaffrey or Ricky Pearsall in your fantasy leagues. I was one of those that drafted Christian McCaffrey 1.1 last year. Did not work out great for me. Christian McCaffrey says that it was blown out of proportion with his calf, which you could see why people would blow that out of proportion. But it's going to be a lot of Christian McCaffrey as it was last week. He got 31 touches last week, 22 carries, 9 receptions. He's on pace for 517 touches. It's unsustainable, but for right now, Kyle Shanahan's trying to win some football games, and that's his best weapon on the offensive side of the ball. If you extrapolate out the last few games going into the end of last year when Ricky Pearsall really started to break out for the 49ers, he's on a 17-game pace of over 100 catches, 1,800 receiving yards, and 11 touchdowns. So that's the guy right now in the passing game for the 49ers, especially with no George Kittle out there. So expect a heavy dose of the run game, a heavy dose of Christian McCaffrey, and when Mac Jones or Brock Purdy, if there's a chance he plays, drop back, they're going to be looking for number one, Ricky Pearsall quite often.
Yeah. A lot of Saints fans really liked Ricky Pearsall coming out of the draft. Really skilled guy, great route runner, just an awesome, gritty player out there. And look, the Saints passing defense had a pretty good day up against the Arizona Cardinals, but did give up some explosive moments. And in particular, also gave up over 140 rushing yards. So you have to imagine that Christian McCaffrey and Kyle Shanahan are looking at the Saints defense, kind of licking their chops a little bit. They're excited, I imagine.
that's the game right there. And we could probably end the podcast because if the 49ers are able to run the ball like they want to, and they are going to want to, like that's the path for the 49ers, and there's other matchups that we're going to get into, but that's a huge one. And it always is, Kyle Shanahan wants to run the football. It's not going to be a surprise to the Saints. It's like, oh man, they're really trying to run the ball today and play balanced football. Like that's what Kyle Shanahan wants to do. He wants to have his entire playbook at his disposal all the time. And he'll lean into the run if he has to and if he can. And so that's going to be job number one for the Saints defense is stopping the run clearly. And real quick note on George Kittle and the injury, and it kind of brings it into perspective because we already knew the ACL injury was the major injury coming into the year was Brandon Ayuk's ACL and that he'd be out for probably at least 6 weeks or so. Well, now after getting put on IR through week 5 for George Kittle, he might have played one extra quarter of football year than Brandon Ayuk. So to put that into perspective, right? Like they're going to miss just as much George Kittle just from one hamstring injury potentially as Brandon Ayuk this season if he does come back, and they both come back together in week 6, which will be welcomed at that point. We'll see where the 49ers are then. They got to get through New Orleans and the Saints first, which is never an easy place to play.
What's kind of the confidence meter in Mac Jones to step in and do this? Because we've seen guys like Sam Darnold, for instance, come out of the other side of the San Francisco 49ers, a much better quarterback. What's the chance here for Mac Jones to be able to do the same?
Yeah, I think that's why Mac Jones is here. He wants that Kyle Shanahan car wash, right? He wants to come out clean on the other side and for teams to treat him like a starter, because I don't think teams were really treating him like a starter going into this offseason. Yeah. So that's a great place for him to be a backup. And now he gets an opportunity to prove that he's still a starter. I think it's a great scheme for him. He probably doesn't have all the weapons he hoped he would have had at his disposal with Kittle and potentially Brandon Ayuk, although he already knew the Brandon Ayuk injury was happening. But Juwan Jennings, MRIs were good. So Juwan Jennings is going to probably be out there. Don't know 100% yet, but he'll probably be out there with, Kendrick Bourne, who was just signed by the 49ers as well, who Mac Jones has thrown the ball to at least before in his NFL career too. So might have a little rapport there for Mac Jones, but expectations aren't super high. I tend to think he's going to be okay. And, whether it's Mac Jones or Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy or Sam Darnold, right? Kyle Shanahan is a really good offensive mind, and he's able to elevate his quarterbacks. And if you can throw with some anticipation and get the ball out in timing, you're going to be okay. And look, Mac has a better arm than Brock Purdy. Now, is he as much of a playmaker? Is he going to have that, that cool factor that Brock Purdy has under pressure, where it seems like nothing ever phases the guy, and the guts that Brock Purdy plays with? Does Mac Jones have that? I don't know. So we'll see if Carl Granderson and company can get after him, if that really wreaks havoc. But right now, I think I'm optimistic that he'll be all right. I don't know if he'll be great, but he'll be all right.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators.
And for the Florida Gators going up against LSU, look, by the way, we will have crossover Thursday. Is actually going to be tomorrow. Just how the schedule worked out. So crossover Thursdays, crossover Friday this week. And today we're doing our usual, keys to victory, what they have to do to win. And first off, do the easy stuff. Look, this is boring to say, right? But we spoke about this with Brooks Austin on Tuesday, and we'll keep speaking about it until they get it right? And I know that it's annoying. I hate saying it. It's year 4, and we're talking about just do the easy things, right? Like just do the simple things. Like Brooks says, the chicken and rice, just do the simple things. Just do what you have to do. Do the clean things, do the simple things, and you're going to get a lot of positive results from it, right? And I will also say this. because I know that once I started with, if Florida's going to win, here's how they do it. I'm sure there were people that went, Florida's not going to win. Maybe not, right? Maybe not. But I'm not going to sit here and go, Florida can't win. You know why I'm not going to sit here and go, Florida can't win that game? Because that's loser energy. That's a loser mentality. And you are a loser if you feel that way. That's how losers feel. Okay? Even if you do want Billy fired. It ain't happening after a loss to LSU. I highly doubt that, right? So, and we had this last year. It's like, wanting a change, but wanting to win every game. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say Florida can't win. I get it. They lost to USF. That doesn't mean that you can't turn it around. Like, they lost to USF in a game where they played horrendously. A bunch of the things that they do poorly that happen every week, whether it's penalties or whether it's just not seeming prepared in some areas, no matter what it is, all of those happened against USF. So I'm not going to say that they can't go out there and win a game. I don't know if they will, right? It's probably not likely, but to say they can't, hell no, not going to do that. But it's boring to say, but it's true that Florida has to do the easy stuff, right? And you can look at, it felt like everybody and their mother all of a sudden wanted to do an all-22 breakdown of Florida after the USF loss. Watch any of them, right? Watch Brooks Austin with Film Guy Network. Watch, or I guess read swampsignal.substack.com. Read Zach Goodall did it with 24/7. Gator Nation Football Pod did it. There were other people, right? I think Seth Varnador did it. I think. There were a ton of people that did all 22 breakdowns, right? Watch the film, and everybody's going to tell you the same thing in some areas, right? They're going to tell you, hey, receivers were open. They were, and I'm not using this as justification for the scheme or the play calling or anything, but I am saying that there were multiple times during that game where receivers were open. And whether it was they didn't catch it or DJ Lagway missed the throw, they were incomplete passes. And at a higher rate than usual, right? Every game there's an open receiver where the quarterback misses it, whether he throws it in the dirt, airmails it, whether it's a drop, whatever it is. There's always incomplete passes that should have been completed. But last week they happened at such a high clip, it was crazy. Do the simple things, right? Like receivers that were open, that were missed, even if they weren't missed physically, like DJ Lagway just didn't see him. Find it, like watch the film and go, okay, like if a team's giving me this look, I might have that look available. Like I might have that receiver, or tight end or running back or whoever it may be. Find those receivers that were open and get them the football this time. If you missed the throw because you wanted to shoot a fadeaway, if you missed the throw because you were rolling and you rushed it a little bit, fix it. Fix it, okay? Like these are things that you can fix. So fix those things. There's some things you're not going to be able to fix, right? But those are things you can fix. Touchdowns taken off the board because of penalties. We had Tony Livingston had one taken off the board because of a Hayden Hansen offensive pass interference, which is the only call that I really, really disliked. That was the only call that I really disliked. Just because I thought it was BS. Just because he wasn't blocking anybody. Like the thing is usually with OPI is they often call those when you start blocking. He wasn't blocking. He ran into a guy and pushed off a bit. Yeah, sure. And had he been targeted, OPI absolutely should have been called. But here's the thing. He wasn't targeted. And I don't even think he really pushed off. He extended his arms a bit, created a little bit of separation, sure. But that was it. Jacoby Jackson scored a rushing touchdown that got taken back with a hold. There were so many times where you had points. You had them. You had 7 points, and you lost them, and you settled for 3, and then you lost the game. One of those touchdowns, you win. I know that's not really how it works because obviously then the whole game would have gone differently, but you get the point. You get the point. Missed assignments in the run game, in the offensive line run game. We saw the clip that J. Bud Davis posted of where he initially posted it saying, having Trey Wilson try to wham block a D tackle doesn't seem like a good idea. But you watch the film and we had, I forgot who it was. It was Max Toscano, I think it was. He quote tweeted it. And he was like, hey, this is duo rap. So What really happened was whoever was supposed to duo block that edge, if that was the duo man, whoever was supposed to get that edge, D lineman, we'll say, didn't. And then Trey tried to make the play, like stuff like that. Like, you can't have that. You can't have guys just whiffing blocks. You can't have guys just completely not even attempting to block. Like, I would rather you go out there and lose the block, like lose your matchup, than just watch you screw the play call up. Like, either way, you're losing a rep, right? But at least if I'm losing a rep because I was mentally prepared and just not physically good enough, I can at least hang my head higher there, right? At least maybe that's just the way that I look at it, but I look at it that way. Things like that, like just missing assignments, it's not acceptable in year 4, especially when your offensive line, we're like, oh yeah, everybody that's on the O-line, everybody that's in the 2 deep was here last year. It's crazy to have that kind of retention rate on the offensive line. And yet somehow we got some guys in year 3 as starters, which I will also say, I can't remember a time specifically where I think Jake Slaughter or Austin Barber just assignment-wise blew the block. But you got guys that are multi-year starters here, and we've got missed assignments on the offensive line. Like, figure it out. Things like that shouldn't be happening. Again, I'm fine if you're losing reps, if you're losing this, if you're losing that, but you're shooting yourself in the foot, and it's incredibly frustrating, not just from a wanting to see clean football perspective, but from being a fan of the team. I want to see you not shoot yourself in the foot all the time. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing to watch too. And it's embarrassing to be a fan. And I got like 45 text messages after that damn game of just people. I got an LSU fan laughing, texting me, but I got 45 text messages from people just talking about the game. When Florida lost, how the hell did that happen? Florida lost, like a whole bunch of stuff like that, just trash talk. It's embarrassing to have happen when the reason it happened isn't because, oh yeah, like they just really showed up and kicked our ass. Like, no, we just screwed up every step of the way. Do the simple things, do the easy stuff, do the basic stuff. Those mistakes shouldn't happen. And also, just play clean football for once, just once. Once. You're going to be on the road, Death Valley. You can't go in there and say, hey, not only are we going to miss assignments, and by the way, like, defense didn't play perfect either, but I care way more about what the offense did, because defense didn't play perfect, but they gave up 1 touchdown. It was on a busted play that from the jump was busted. I know that they had a chance to recover, but the only reason they were in that spot is because they had the busted play. 1 touchdown allowed because of that. Then it was field goals and a safety. That's how they got their points. I got a hard time criticizing the defense too much for that. Just doesn't make sense to me, right? Shouldn't make sense to you either, because it doesn't make sense. Like, just play clean football. Cut down the penalties. Missed tackles, I don't think were that bad, really. They happened in crucial moments, but in terms of quantity, they weren't that bad. Missing open receivers. Stuff like that is not year 4 football. Stuff like that is not QB1 second year starting football. These are things that need to be eliminated. And you got to figure it out quickly. Otherwise, you might not make it long enough to try to fix these things.
The NFL season is finally here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
You are Locked On Balls, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers.
Pleased to welcome onto the show from Rivals.com, national recruiting analyst Chad Simmons. Chad, really appreciate you taking the time. Massive recruiting weekend coming up for Tennessee. Obviously, a big-time game on the slate as well, Tennessee and Georgia. But first, let's talk about the class overall. This 26 class for Tennessee, man, is starting to look really good, kind of rounding into form. It's solidified as a top 10 right now. Things can always change, but a lot of high-end talent with Tristan Keys flipping to join Faison Brandon. Of course, you got two of the better athletes in the class, with Joel Wyatt and Celeste Moa. Love the linebackers, Braden Rouse, TJ White, and of course, Hezekiah Harris and Kamari Blair, two recent flips as well. Just some of the headliners of this class. I feel like this has potential to be one of the best classes Josh Heupel and his staff have put together here on Tennessee.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, obviously the month of August and early September has been about flips. Kamari Blair from South Carolina, in-state offensive tackle. And obviously the big one was Tristan Keys, 5-star from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, going from LSU to Tennessee. And of course, recently Hezekiah Harris leaving the home state school, Auburn, going to Tennessee. And, like you said, it's a great class, a lot of big wins. Obviously flips, always are huge headlines and newsmakers, but, going back a year plus, Faison Brandon, elite 5-star quarterback, and from North Carolina, Tennessee beat schools like Alabama and LSU. I mean, I love a guy like Legend Bay. A&M was at one time trending for him in Texas, and plays quarterback, an elusive athlete that can do a lot of things with the ball in his hands. And, a guy like Braden Rouse from my home state in Georgia. Texas came on strong. Georgia, the in-state school, was involved. Alabama in the mix. Michigan as well. Tennessee got it done in the end, and goes back to, I think, relationships and connections. Got that job done. Like you said, Eric, a great overall class, a top 10, I think, top 10 strong class for Heupel and company at Tennessee.
I'm going to throw you for a loop here. I did not tell you what I'm about to do, so bear with me here. Let's go back to the class of 25. And you kept mentioning relationships and how that's still obviously very relevant in recruiting nowadays. One of the earliest commits for Tennessee in last year's cycle was cornerback Ty Redmond. Not a very highly rated guy. Like, it's an impossible task to rate these players. I know that. You're obviously a part of that as well. But 70th, 80th in the country in Georgia, which is loaded with talent. But he had a really good fall camp coming on due to injuries, playing a massive role for Tennessee as a true freshman at corner. And it kind of goes back to those relationships and saying that, this staff evaluates, their scale, and they're going to take it. They're going to build and develop those guys. Ty Redmond in that conversation and some other ones. Who maybe are, you can speak on that if you would, but also in this 26 class, Zayden Anderson kind of comes to mind. He's got a lot of speed from Greenville. The Green Devils, really great program. You mentioned Legend Bay, who's a nice rated player. But there's a couple of those players in this class as well that the staff just really likes, got early commits from. And like Ty Redmond, maybe that turns into something here earlier in their careers.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, just about, one thing I like about the way Tennessee recruits is just kind of almost the old school way. It's not all about buying and NIL. Yes, that's part of it for most recruits nowadays. It's part of the process, but just kind of sticking to their guns and being, all about communication, all about relationships, all about being consistent. To me, that's helped them a lot in this 2026 class, whether it's being an early commitment like a Faison Brandon or a flip like Hezekiah Harris. I think it all goes back to the same roots, and that's communication, consistency, trust, relationships. But for me, talking about a guy like Redmond, I saw him last year, obviously from Georgia and doing what he does and a player. But a guy like, I think, TJ White kind of went somewhat under the radar as a commit for Tennessee. Yes, he's a player, and he comes from Mississippi, and there was talk about Mississippi State, Florida State, different schools, and kind of quietly, somewhat in this day and age committed to Tennessee. Not a lot of fanfare, around his name or hype, but I love him as a player, how he competes, his leadership. At Jackson Academy, a top program in Mississippi. Those guys work, they complete every day in practice. And he's a guy I kind of feel like he doesn't get talked about a whole lot. That can be a guy like Redmond, maybe this time next year, making an early impact that people didn't talk about. Everybody talks about Keys and Brandon and those kind of guys being the 5-stars and the elite playmakers. But TJ White's a guy to me that comes to mind. And again, how it goes back to them getting him was that relationship with a guy like Josh Heupel. He committed to Josh Heupel while they were shooting basketball early on the official visit when that started on a Friday afternoon. So that comfortability, them knowing each other, played a huge role in that decision.
I want to look at 2027's class real quick, and a guy that's expected to be on campus this weekend. Man, one of the top running backs from the state of Tennessee, from Baylor. And you kind of think about it, man, and kind of laugh, but it's kind of true. Baylor's kind of turning into a little bit of a pipeline for Tennessee, right? With just, guys on the team right now, current commits in the class. David Gabriel Georges. Man, I think he looks like a guy that's SEC ready, and that's crazy to say about a high school athlete right now. But if you just turn on the tape and look at him, he fits the bill, literally. Ohio State very much involved in this one. Tennessee is as well. Still early in his recruitment, but where do you have Tennessee in this one for David Gabriel Georges?
Yeah, I mean, I think, depending on, again, kind of who you talk to or the sources that you have, I think Tennessee's one or two. I think you mentioned Ohio State. He was there for the Texas game. He'll be back in Knoxville this weekend. He's been to both of those programs in Columbus and Knoxville around 3, 4, 5 times each. He knows the coaching staffs very well, knows some players on each team. And like you said, Tennessee will love nothing more for it to be a true pipeline down to Chattanooga at Baylor with a guy like this. Like you said, he looks the part. I could see him playing like right now, for a team like Ohio State, Tennessee, Georgia, Oregon. He has those physical traits, that ability, that kind of strength. And he's also very mature off the field for just being a junior in high school as well. He comes from Canada, so he's not from the South. He's not from SEC country. But he knows all about Rocky Top and Tennessee football, and they're very much in this race.
Another 27 class in-state commit, but not for Tennessee. Oregon. Tennessee's still in this one. Recruitment's not over, but Keyshawn Bowman went ahead and pulled the trigger early for Oregon. 6'1", 180 from Brentwood Academy. We did a rivalry Thursday game last week with him and George McIntyre against Tyreek King. That was a whole lot of fun. And I remember leaving that stadium, and I'm just like, man, why has Tennessee not gotten this guy on the boat already? I know it's early, but this guy's real talent. Tennessee's not going away in this one, right?
They are not. I think if anything, again, going back, they're being consistent and say, look, man, you're a top guy for us. You have a place here. We know you're committed to Oregon. But look, you're not signing for another year plus. So a long way to go. And I think all of us from a national perspective were a little bit, caught off guard when he committed to Oregon when he did, as early as he did, knowing at that time, at least for me, I felt Tennessee was in the best position at the time that he committed. And they're still not going away, still keeping that communication consistent. He'll be in Knoxville this weekend for Georgia. Wouldn't be surprised if he's back in Knoxville for another game later on this fall. And I feel like Tennessee is Oregon's biggest competition. He was at Ohio State. They're in the mix. He's going to Texas in November as well. They're in there. But I think if you're worried about anybody, I think it starts with Tennessee.
Star-studded affair this weekend coming on campus for Tennessee and Georgia. Obviously, there were a couple guys on campus, for the home opener. This past weekend against ETSU, but the main event's coming up here in a couple of days. We mentioned Bowman, we mentioned a couple other guys, but Donovan Moore, Lawrence Britt, Princeton UFO, some of the other that are kind of headlining the weekend. Anything stand out about those three or anybody else that's set to be on campus this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee is in a great spot with UFO. I think they got on him early. They've gotten him on campus multiple times, started to build that relationship with the 2027 O-tackle in their home state. I think a guy kind of opposite with Donovan Moore, being from Alabama, an elite player on that 5-star track right now from Alabama. I think Auburn probably is the early favorite, the early school trending. So getting him back on campus, I mean, obviously Rodney Garner knows that state extremely well, playing at Auburn, coaching in the SEC footprint throughout his career. And they've had some success in that state. So getting him back on campus will be a good opportunity for Tennessee to kind of make that move and somewhat maybe close that gap with them in Auburn. But I think overall it's going to be a monster weekend in Knoxville. There will be top recruits we know about coming now, maybe some surprises coming on later in the week as well. A great opportunity for Tennessee to put on a great show against Georgia this weekend.
Chad Simmons, one of the best in the business that covers recruiting at a national level. Rivals powering the recruiting coverage of On3. You do great work, man. What for the viewers that are watching, listening to the show right now, where can we follow your work? What do you have coming up throughout the week? Some staples, or how can we get involved more in Tennessee football recruiting, and of course on a national perspective as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll say we have a great team, over here at Rivals, first of all, whether it be Steve Wilfong, Adam Gorney, Sam Spiegelman, Greg Smith, myself. I mean, look, we're grinding every day trying to cover from coast to coast the best players in the country. And look, Tennessee's involved with a lot of those guys. So you want to lock in, if you're a Tennessee fan, to Rivals.com. For myself, I'm always, somewhere in the South, up the East Coast, covering the best players in the country, which Tennessee love to get involved in the DMV. The Carolinas, they're very strong. Of course, the Peach State, where I live at as well. So, look, thanks for the support, Eric. We love what Tennessee's about from the community. VolQuest, they by far lead the market, the best in the business in our industry. So Rivals being part of that community is big for us as well, man. Thanks for having me on the show.